Hey everyone, this is the last and final video on Gradius III, and in it, we're going to do the first challenge video on the channel, which is pretty cool for me. I'm looking forward to this, but trust me, we aren't starting with something easy. For this challenge, we want to find out what is the least amount of enemies you can kill in Gradius III and still beat the game. So first off, we should probably set some ground rules, and these will most likely make a little more sense as we go through the gameplay. If you're looking to try this challenge out on your own, you may be saying,
but let me run a few questions by you so I don't screw up accidentally.
So, let's clarify. First, we better define what an enemy is. I'm going to define an enemy as anything that gives the player points. There's a lot of inanimate objects in the run that if shot, make the game easier. So to add challenge, we're going to be avoiding these as much as possible. Secondly, you can use the Konami Code. Trust me, I didn't want to include this, but it's absolutely necessary to kill the fewest enemies possible, and this will be explained later in greater detail. Note, you can only use it once. Taking damage and re-entering the code,
that's a technical foul!
The game needs to be beat on normal difficulty. On easy, the enemies move like they're in mud, and a lot of them don't even shoot at you, so we want to keep this challenging. Lastly, it needs to be able to be performed deathless. Skipping certain parts with deaths is not allowed. As far as rules go, that's it. Alright, get ready to
dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge.
If you're going to try this at home, be prepared for a lot of Alright, let's jump right into this challenge. One thing that's necessary first when we start is to go into the options and to make sure that we have missiles on a different button than the shoot button. This is important because I know that we're going to have to shoot at some point, and we don't want to have any flyaway missiles kill any enemies that we don't want them to. The layout that we're going to choose for our ship will include the reduce shield and the rotating options. The reduce shield is rather self-explanatory, it makes our hitbox really tiny, but the rotating options will be explained in greater detail later. Okay, so start out the game, and spoiler, at some point before we reach the end of level 7, we're going to need to absolutely, no questions asked, no substitutions, need 2 speed ups. The Konami Code gives us 1, so I opt to kill this guy right here at the very beginning and take the orb for a speed up. So that's 1 enemy killed, and 100 points on the board. The lead up before the first level isn't too terrible, it just has a lot of sketchy movement. But we should get used to this because I think this is going to be the standard the entire run. The first level is pretty easy. Eventually, we reach the Earwig Scorpion boss. You may be wondering, what can we do here except kill the boss? Well, I'm ecstatic to say that the bosses time out in Gradius III. Yeah, it's really weird for a shoot 'em up, but very helpful in our plot to help out the bad guys and leave them be. All we have to do is avoid getting hit, and the boss can kill themselves. Now, on to the second level. This lead-up area is a little more challenging, which, is to be expected, it's the second level, and avoiding these guys that follow you around can be a real pain. The second level itself isn't very difficult, with the exception of some tight movement happening at the larger bubbles, but it's not that bad. The bubble boss is really difficult. Because it moves toward the left side of the screen whenever the player is in front, we have to keep moving it backwards by shifting to one of its sides. I'm not gonna lie, I died a lot when trying to get the footage for this video at this one boss.
But with all hard things, if we just keep trying, we can succeed. Awesome! The third intermediary area doesn't present any new challenges, so let's move on to the level. The first half is a breeze. Just keep on dodging, and we're fine. The volcanoes pose a definite problem though. It feels like they randomly shoot out lava rocks at varying velocities, so moving to the right side of the volcanoes as quickly as possible is advised. Now, after we move into the second half, I can already tell this is going to be a doozy. There is a place where we have to shoot. We shoot to clear the mud in this part, but we have to be cautious not to kill enemies. This is a serious pain in the ass.
Please say hi to me!
Note, This was a large reason why we changed the missile to a different button. Eventually, with a bit of luck and understanding of the layout, we make it past this part. What we are left with is a complete monstrosity. This part is pure evil. You've got guys up on top, guys on bottom, guys in the middle, and these weird volcano head guys that just charge straight at you. At first glance, this looks totally impossible. However, with a lot of trial and error, we find one itty-bitty little place of sanctuary. After a large amount of dodging, we can head up to the top of the level and hide by this enemy launcher. There's no worries from crashing into the top of the level because for some weird reason, collision with the level border doesn't hurt our ship at this part. The volcano will kill us though, but the hitbox is rather forgiving. The real problem is this little enemy right here. After a while, he will hit us, no matter what. There's nothing we can do but get hurt by him. But we need not to kill the enemies, right? Okay, so we get hurt and become big and shieldless. This means that the rest of the run is going to be an extreme challenge, but we'll continue. This boss was actually the first that I ever actively let time out. Sometimes on extreme difficulties, it can be easier to not fight the boss at all than to fight them, because they get more difficult in the later phases. Anyways, this boss is super easy, so let's move on. This intermediary stage is quite easy, so let's go straight to the Moai stage. For the most part, there's just a lot of dodging, but this stage does have a secret in store for us. When we reach the rotating Moai totems, at the second layer of them, we can't pass unless we kill a single cell of the totem. You may consider this one single enemy, but again, I would consider it 4 because destroying each head would yield points. Therefore, this is highly undesirable. Luckily, this stage has a secret area we can warp to, so let's take that route instead. Again, we will have to shoot in this secret stage, and because of the rules, avoiding the yellow orbs that give us points will have to be done. For the most part, this is pretty simple. However, this part here certainly gives us some trouble, because our ship is no longer small, and sadly we can't get past this part without collecting a yellow orb that gives us a terrible 100 points. Okay, so now we're up to 200 points and 1 enemy killed. Nevertheless, we make it out of the secret area and on to the next stage. In moving to the next level, this segment is very clench-worthy. Check out how tight some of this movement feels. The fire level is atrocious for our challenge. The lava rocks that blow up wreck us at every single turn. The only advice I can offer is to memorize the placement of the rocks and try to zoom to the right of them before they explode into their smallest forms. The bottleneck part of the level is an extreme challenge and very threatening to the run. For a little bit, I thought, man, I might not be able to make it past this. It's worth noting that there's a secret level right before this part, but we have no chance to take it because it requires the 100 spot of our points to be either 3, 5, 7, or 9, and that would involve killing enemies, so we can't do that. Instead, we just have to time this to perfection. It is possible to squeeze through this very tight area without killing anything or taking damage, it's just extremely hard. Now, the double-headed fire dragon is pretty easy. We just have to not get hit by one of the broken segments after the boss explodes. Jumping straight to the plant level, there's some really tight movement necessary to get through a large amount of the level. This is especially amplified with the large ship. The boss isn't too hard, and although it takes a while, it will explode on its own eventually. Heading to the high speed stage, this part is really tough. Once we make it to the actual stage, note that this level is why we needed 2 speed-ups. This descending part is impossible with any less. If you don't have 2 speed-ups, you're gonna crash into the top wall. I tried and tried and tried, but trust me, it just won't happen. The boss is pretty simple. We just need to hug one of the walls and react to the blue orbs, and we're good.
The boss rush is actually really easy, so we won't talk about it too much. The only thing I will say is I never realized how easy the final boss of the boss rush is. Check this out. You can just sit still. The segue to the next level is really on par with the latest levels, so we'll move straight to the 8th level. And let me tell you, this level sucks. It is the bane of our challenge, the kryptonite to our run, the Legos to our poor little feet. Firstly, it definitely has some of the most difficult parts in it, like this lovely bottleneck. But check out this hellscape. We don't want to kill any of these guys, but what are we supposed to do? After spending hours on this one part, it was decided we had to kill some of these poor enemies. Unfortunately, one shot causes a ton of destruction. In this one shot, we have killed 6 enemies. This leaves us with 7 enemies killed and 800 points on the board. I totally didn't want to have this kind of blood on our hands. Well, that should be the worst part of this level, hopefully. The first boss ranks up there difficulty-wise, because there's so much going on and because the lasers point right at us. I've also never seen its suicide animation though, and it looks pretty cool. It's really interesting that it even kills the walker enemies on the top and bottom wall. The latter half of this level definitely ranks up there difficulty-wise. Firstly, we have to finagle our way through the wall enemies. Then, we have to work our way in between these guys. The key to this is picking the correct route and hugging the walls. Our ship has a somewhat forgiving hitbox, and we need to use this to our full advantage. Once we're out, it seems like we're home free from this terrible stage. But then I ran into the most ridiculous, inexplainable, disgusting thing in this entire run. The Shadow Dancers bosses. Firstly, they have the longest boss sequence, for sure. It's also pretty hard not to run into them. But the worst thing, the thing that pains me to say, is that they don't explode. That's right, every other boss up to this point kills itself, but these ones cling on to life. They want to push on. There's no way past them, and they just stand there proudly boasting as our poor little ship crashes right into the side of them. It pains me to say that we have to kill these bosses. Believe me, I tried everything. I went back and searched the entire level for some unknown secret stage to no avail. I tried crashing into every square inch of the boss. I tried killing only one boss. I even thought maybe the timeout of bosses is based on real time and not in-game time, so I shot the entire time causing slowdown. This again did nothing. These bosses have to sadly be killed. This now leaves us with 9 enemies killed and a hefty 10,800 points on the board. Well, after that catastrophe, it pleases me to say that the last level of the game presents no serious hiccups. We can get through all the level without killing any enemies. However, the beginning part, it is pretty tough, and the entire time I was worried about the meatballs with arms touching me.
God, please don't touch me with your alien hands!
Once you get past the intro, it's tough dodging, but nothing compared to level 8. The only real tough part was not accidentally killing enemies when trying to get through the pink walls, but by exercising caution, it's certainly doable. Lastly, we sit and glare the final boss into killing himself, and the game is complete. So, 9 enemies, 10,800 points. That's the best we can do. No. Nope, it's not. I thought about this challenge. I sat and thought, and thought. I thought for an entire day, and I realized I made a huge mistake. I realized that this was like a mystery novel. I just had to figure out the best way to get through the game. I realized that there was one enemy that ruined the entire playthrough for me.
Who?
It's this terrible little guy right here. I also realized that I certainly didn't need to get my second speed up at the beginning of the game. Not at all. I could do so at any point before the 7th level. So, I smashed the cartridge back into my Super Nintendo and decided to give it a go. So, everything you've seen up to this point is one way that the game could have been beaten by killing the fewest enemies, but this is how it actually happened. Oh, and get ready, because we're about to go through this really fast. Okay, so we boot up, change option. Select the loadout, input the Konami Code, leave the gold guy alone, and collect the speed up later. Zoom through the first level, zoom through the second level,
Bubble Boss is really hard. Move to the third level. First part is really easy.
Stay to the right.
Mud is not so easy. Then we get to the pain guy. Alright, so we opt to kill him instead this time, so that we can keep our shield the entire run. And then we optimize collecting the second speed up by taking the orb it leaves behind. Beat this easy boss. Moai stage comes around, we take the secret stage. Because our hitbox is so tiny, we can now avoid gold orbs by sticking to walls. And boom! Leaving the 4th level with only 1 enemy killed and 100 points on the board. 5th stage comes around, it's extremely difficult, so we die 100 times trying to navigate through the bottleneck. Dragon Boss is easy. Plant stage is a little difficult to navigate through, but no problem. This part is hard again, but we make it through. High speed stage is no problem at all, and the boss is really easy. I've now tried this challenge so much I can do this with the ice boss and the boss rush. Move through, we complete the boss rush and the intermediary stage, and move on to level 8, the one that ruins the run for the most part. The bottleneck is still a pain. Then we make it to the part before where we had to kill 6 enemies. Now, with such a small hitbox and a bit of experimentation, we make it through without getting hit at all. This is amazing. Then we move to the non-suicidal boss, but still play through the entire sequence because it feels like we're cheating if we don't. We move through the final level, and then hide in this happy little cubbyhole while the final boss self-destructs. And there we have it, folks. The fewest enemies that you can kill and points that you can collect and still beat Gradius III is 3 enemies and 10,100 points. I do want to let everyone know too, don't think that I did this all in one continuous sequence. I use the Nanotech Game Saver, so I just want to make that perfectly clear. I don't suggest anyone try this in one continuous sequence. It's not impossible, but boy oh boy is it hard. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please remember to like and subscribe. If anyone out there has any idea of how to make it past the bosses in level 8 without killing them, please let me know. Also, if you have any suggestions for a SNES game challenge for the future, please do let me know in the comments. Alright guys, I had a ton of fun making this challenge video, so expect more of them in the future. I'll see you next time.